Welcome to the podcast series Talking Success, connecting the global fintech community. I'm Stacey Jafta, and today I'll be chatting with Robert Israch, General Manager Europe and Chief Marketing Officer of Tipalti. Tipalti is the only global payables automation solution to streamline all phases of the AP and payment management workflow in one holistic cloud platform. Hi, Rob. How are you?
Hi, Stacey. Thanks for having me.
Of course. How's your day been?
It's been good. I managed to get a little walk in this morning while the sky's still blue, so that's great.
I love that. One of my favorite questions actually to ask guests is their daily routines. It's something that I just absolutely love. Is there anything special you do?
I've been trying to walk for 45 minutes to an hour in the nearby park every morning. I'm very mixed success, but this morning I at least got 30 minutes in there, so I take that as a win.
Yeah, I started walking, I think, early lockdown. Just feel like it was just so nice to get out mentally. Besides the physical benefits of it, I saw a massive change mentally.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm a little worried about winter. I'll have to figure out a new way to get a version of that in.
I'm sure you'll find something. Rob, before we dive any deeper, it's really nice for the listeners to understand how you became General Manager Europe and Chief Marketing Officer of Tipalti and exactly what led up to that moment.
Yeah, sure. As a background, my background's always been marketing. Even in university in the early days, I didn't know what marketing was, but I knew I wanted to be in it, and I just had an affinity toward it. I'd look at billboards.
Well, what about it? Okay.
I don't know. I'm a mixture of analytical and creative, and at home I like painting, and I've always done art my whole life, and so I've got a creative side to me, but I'm also quite analytic, and there's only a few careers where you have that blend. Yeah. And so I think because of those qualities and the fact that I like the combination, I was just pulled towards marketing, and I just spent a disproportionate amount of my time interpreting advertisements and looking at bad branding, even when I didn't realize what it was called. And so I kind of always went toward that direction naturally, starting in university. And so my career didn't start in marketing, but it eventually rooted to marketing because I was trying to get there. And I was fortunate in my previous company. I was at NetSuite, and I was there prior to the company going public for many years. And I helped build up their demand gen function, their branding, and international marketing. I oversaw EMEA, APAC, and Japan marketing along their journey. And so of course the company did quite well, and they went public, and I grew with them, which was great. And then I'd been there quite a while, about 8 years, and I was ready for my next challenge. And the company was large; it was 3,500 employees, and I tend to enjoy more of that, fast-growing startup atmosphere. And so I was ready for my next challenge and wanted to run marketing soups nuts. And then I bumped into this company, Tipalti, through a recruiter. Yeah. And I actually wasn't sold on the company initially. They were very small. I think the company was somewhere around 20 employees at the time.
Wow.
And I just, I knew the space. I knew the space was quite large, but I just wasn't very knowledgeable about the company. I knew it was a high risk move, but I met with the founder and CEO, Amit, and I just hit it off with him after 15 minutes. Even as big a decision it is, a lot of that decision came down to gut. And I just kind of had a feeling like the markets, of course, this market's good, but the company has had a great track record of customer satisfaction and retention. I really like that. As a marketer, you want the wind at your backs, not running up against negative word of mouth and the such. And I just like he didn't ooze ego like you get with a lot of executives nowadays, I suppose, particularly in tech. And so he just seemed like the type of person you can have an analytical, thoughtful, human conversation with and enjoy working with and problem solve. And I really like that. And I also met then the co-founder, and it was the same vibe. And so I think that, along with obviously good qualities about the market size and knowing that this market was very immature and it was a clear problem they were solving, and good signs of word of mouth and customer satisfaction, all led me to make the jump. And that's how I essentially became a CMO. I've now been at the company 7 years, so it's been quite we've had a nice growth trajectory. But about 2.5 years ago, we wanted to grow our channel and our alliances function, and so kind of asked me if I could take on that challenge, and that's been quite successful. And it's now about 20% of our business is sourced by the channel. Back several years ago, it was in the single digits. And so then last December, one of our future growth levers for sure is global and expanding all around the world. And so about December, I think it was December 2019, kind of approached me about that opportunity and said, would you be interested? And personally, I love traveling. My family's from South Africa originally, and I've traveled my entire life. And so that opportunity from a personal side was exciting. My wife and family were totally on board. And from a professional perspective, it's completely a new challenge, right? Running a part of the business, a cross-functional, in a new culture. And I like a challenge. It's definitely a leadership challenge for me. It's been a fun ride, even despite moving during right before the mutation was announced. So that was an interesting ride in itself, but it's been a fun journey.
Yeah, I'm sure. Definitely high risk, high reward. We work with a lot of startups, even smaller at their like 3-man, 5-man size. And we have a lot of candidates obviously coming to us for advice. What would you say they should look out for in a business? They can be larger, let's say the 20-man mark. What would you give advice to people in that situation?
When they're evaluating the business and deciding if they want to take the risk and join the company?
Exactly.
Firstly, it sounds simple, but evaluate the people, right? Work and business is a people job, and make sure that the founder or the CEO or the C-suite or whoever you're working with and for, that they're people you like, that you have a similar worldview or perspective on how business should be achieved, because you're going to be spending a lot of hours with those people. It doesn't mean you have to agree with them on everything, but you want to be aligned on your value system and the types of people you'll be working with and what the view is on talent that you'll be hiring and the such like that's for sure. Certainly want to evaluate, is this company differentiated? I think if you're going into a commoditized space or the product and the solution and the vision is not differentiated and doesn't add unique value to the target audience, you're likely set up for failure, frankly.
Yeah.
And so you'd have to make sure that there's a very clear vision as well as a differentiation between the solution. Ideally, it solves a real problem on the other side. And then the third piece I'd say is, look for signs of word of mouth, high customer satisfaction. No one's perfect, but a good retention rate or other qualities. It indicates the company's not selling a bill of goods, but they actually have a product that solves a problem and it actually works to a good extent. So those are some of the key characteristics that I've looked at and that have worked out for me.
Well, it definitely looks like it's been a good move for you. So happy to see. And you joined as CMO and then recently, or around about a year ago, headed up the European team. How was that adjustment, getting an additional role on top of what you were doing?
Yeah, it was quite an adjustment to be honest. In the US, to keep marketing scaling, I hired a North America SVP of marketing who was quite seasoned and experienced to keep the machine, the global marketing machine moving quite nicely, while I had to increase my focus on, of course, building this business and recruiting and learning the market, of course, and the such. So does that help me focus? Alliances, which I was overseeing at the time, moved over to sales. I think I would personally have exploded to be overseeing that as well. So that's the other piece. I made the shift, and then I really just had to get kind of integrated into the market out here and focus and learn everything from kind of the customer base, the market, the needs. Of course, culturally, make sure that I adapt my leadership style, so to speak, to the market. And definitely a key part of it is hiring the right people, right? Sure. And building the right culture and the right team, because if you get the right people and you have the right culture in place, everything else tends to take care of itself.
Was it easier or harder than you expected?
I think I'd say it was harder than I expected, and
really?
in different ways. I mean, it's worked out quite well, but it was really pretty hard work. And my CEO actually warned me. He said, "Look, you're basically you're creating a startup within a mature business, and you're basically creating a business, And I think particularly because we're in fintech, there are essentially multiple different things we have to do to make this thing operational. We have to, in our world, we're actually executing payments on behalf of our clients, and that means to do this properly and to do it right, to deliver that right experience for our customers, we have to get an FCA license in the market. So we went through the whole FCA licensing process, which is quite a journey in and of itself. Had to get the whole back office operation set up to support a multi-subsidiary business operation. UK is our first official go-to-market that's in a different market from North America. So there was obviously quite a lot to do there. And then, of course, had to build a go-to-market team, recruit out here, and then, of course, have it all come together on board. The team, we actually onboarded most of the team on the same exact day, which was I asked the entire leadership, and we had COVID here, right? So it's a very interesting process of, we managed to recruit great people, but most of those people I hadn't met, it was purely online. So we built a great leadership team, the founding team. And then on, I think it was September 1st, we essentially trained everyone in person on the same day. And so I said to the folks on my leadership team out here, have you done this before? Have you ever trained and enabled an entire team on the same day? And everyone was like, no. And so it went pretty well, unfortunately, and it was a great experience. It was quite invigorating, a little exhausting, but
I could only imagine.
The team out here has a great energy and great chemistry. So we did a bunch of dinners beforehand. So we all met up beforehand, which was interesting. In the beginning was like speed dating, but but it was those 2 or 3 dinners we did before the onboarding of the whole team on the same day, I think really helped kind of build that chemistry beforehand. And then the onboarding's gone well, and we're definitely bringing in new customers since we've launched, which has been exciting. So it's going well, but it was hard work for sure.
Super exciting. Our business, I think, has grown close to 200% in people since COVID hit. So I've not met majority of the people in our business, and we're having a Christmas party in less than a month, and we're all meeting. And I think it's going to be so strange seeing somebody on a screen for a year, 2 years, feeling like you know them and you've never met in person.
Yeah. It's almost like you have a relationship with them and you know them, and then you meet them in person. They look different than you expected. So
I assume so. So I'm very, very short, and I know there's a couple of my members in our team are really, really tall. And you're just going to be shocked. But yeah, I'm really, really excited about it. And Rob, I have a very similar background to you. When I was younger, I also just knew I had such a passion for marketing, and everyone around me was like, "You're going to be a marketer one day." Mm-hmm. I didn't know why, so I was kind of like you. I just went with it. I studied it, and I fell in love with it. I really believe marketing plays a vital role in the success of a business. How have you seen the impact of your campaigns or strategies play out?
Scott, could you design a video game?
I could make you a hypothetical one. If I took some random genres, mechanics, maybe blended them together, and created a new hypothetical game.
Now that would make a great podcast.
Undoubtedly.
So what would you make? Something original and exciting? A Dark Souls city builder? A co-op roguelike?
Everything. All of that. We could use the Nemesis system and put it in a first-person shooter. And we could have a loot system with survival mechanics and motion controls. And maybe you could, save a kingdom from some out-of-control toasters. What about party?
Catch the Gaming Blender on all your favourite podcast platforms.
Yeah, well, so I tend to be I mentioned I was analytical earlier. I'm a pretty analytical, I guess, accountability-focused marketer. And so at our business, about 50% of all bookings are sourced by marketing. So we can see one-to-one. We know that, leads that were created by our marketing function created this many dollars, this many opportunities, but even more importantly, this many dollars of new client signings every year. And it's about 50%, which is, in the best in class area. So that's really, feels good to know that you have a direct impact to the bottom line. I think the difficult part is, as you know, there's a lot of marketing that's not, you can generate these many leads, let's say, but there's also nurturing leads. There's also product marketing and messaging and branding. All those things are not measurable. So that 50% contribution is the minimum accountability of impact of marketing. But certainly being able to state that and show that helps the whole marketing team know that we have an impact and lets us see, are we off track or on track? Are we trending up, down? And, and then the hard part is communicating that, there's also all this other stuff that you can't see in the data that we're helping the business with, but that's just the reality of marketing.
Yeah. And Tipalti is an accounting software solution for businesses. How can CFOs understand their accounts payable workflow and global payment processes need modernizing?
Yeah, I mean, so within finance, where we really are focused on is that payables operation. And typically, if you read any surveys from FDs or controllers or CFOs, fairly regularly when they're asked what the most time-consuming function in finance is, it almost always is accounts payable.
Yeah.
Because it's a very manual, very time-consuming, very error-prone process, and it's never properly been addressed with technology. And so, because of that, the FD or the CFO, typically their team is spending a disproportionate time keeping these wheels moving to pay their suppliers on time, to process invoices, to pay vendors and suppliers or partners around the world. Typically, in the early days of a company, let's say the company's 30 employees, maybe they have sub 100 invoices or payments. They have to make them a month. At that point, it's not ideal, but you can get by and hack through the manual accounts payable process. It's once the company starts scaling, growing, where the manual, non-scalable process of accounts payable, the legacy process we talked about, really starts impeding finance from doing what the CEO and the board and the VC and probably the FD themselves wanted to do with their own career, with their team.
Yeah.
And so it's around that 100 invoices, 100 payments a month where that complexity starts rolling in, particularly as it gets higher. So as you grow, all that happens is you get more suppliers, you have more payments, you have more complexity, the volumes of suppliers and invoices and payments increase. And as you get to 500 payments a month or 500 invoices a month, same with, eventually up to 1,000 and more, it starts increasing the burden on the finance team. And essentially you have to start hiring more and more AP folks just to keep up with those volumes. Particularly in the UK, and all businesses generally, particularly with the trends in business nowadays, you tend to have more cross-border payments as you start growing up and getting bigger. And that cross-border payments disproportionately then impacts the workflow even more. As companies scale further, they have multi-subsidiary processes. As they get bigger, they need PO management and other processes to control costs. You have to worry about fraud. There's all kinds of processes you have to worry about within the finance process for accounts payable and the payables workflow as you keep growing. And as you keep growing, you essentially at that point you start realizing it's a poor investment to keep hiring finance people who are quite talented, the best people in the entire business on numbers and mastering how to do analytics. Apply them to that, or apply those investments to other places that help your business grow and make better decisions. To hire more and more AP people to keep up with volumes as you grow is certainly not the solution, and it exposes your business to fraud, and it holds back, frankly, the charter and the opportunity for finance to be a strategic enabler of the business growth. So that's typically where you see those trends falling, and where finance needs to start looking at automation to help scale this process while they can focus on more important things. The other trend that's kind of come in here is in the last 10, 15 years, the digital economy has grown up, right? 10, 15 years ago, you didn't have ad tech, you didn't have online marketplaces, you didn't have the gig economy or creator economy. All those, imagine Uber telling their drivers, every time you drive 2 miles, send me an invoice and I'll send you a payment. They'll quit, right? They'll quit and they'll go join the next car driving gig economy company next door who doesn't make them do that. And these drivers or the talent or the gig workers or freelancers, publishers, those are the heart of these companies. Without the drivers, Uber's worthless, right? They're almost nothing. And so you have to deliver this great payment experience, and that payment experience is no longer that traditional process of invoice backing is not required. And so that's really challenged the finance function because they have to have a whole new process now to handle that type of high volume, partners that are onboarding at high rates, cross-border payments become even more overstated in that type of equation. And you have to pay people with a really great payment experience. And then if you think about finance, now they have to handle two processes at once. They have an invoice-backed payables process and a non-invoice-backed payables process for their gig workers or the such. And that's particularly challenging on finance. So all those kind of trends and characteristics lead to this underswell of demand for automation of the payables operation.
And then how have you found the current state of AP workflows in the UK differ to the US?
Yeah, it's a interesting question. So I'd say generally speaking, the US is more mature in terms of applying AP automation to their processes. There's been some technologies that at least serve the small business sector in the US for many years. And because of that, and some other companies who tend not to be in the UK, the companies are just very US centric.
Yeah.
And so there's more automation applied to the accounts payable process and the general payables process in the US. And so I'd say generally the process of accounts payable in the UK is probably 3 to 5 years behind. There's just more manual processes, frankly, out here from that perspective. So the other piece that's interesting is while there's more manual process in the UK actually, if you look at their payables workflow, is more complex. So they tend to have a higher rate of cross-border payments. They have a higher rate of a multi-subsidiary finance structure, which both cross-border payments and multi-subsidiary are two of those variables that create real havoc within the finance operation. FX is definitely like a currency conversion, and converting the finances and pounds and the such is much more common out here. And then of course you have things like VAT regulation, self-billing requirements, and pay on time regulation. There's a little bit more regulation out here, and all those things create much more complexity in the finance operation. So it's a really interesting kind of both. It's more manual and there's more complexity out here to many aspects than the US process.
Yeah, so it's really recent that you launched in the UK. I know you guys have plans to expand across Europe. You're now talking about how it's a lot more manual in the UK. Has that been more of a challenge or less of a challenge expanding into these regions?
I think it's actually less of a challenge in that, when we start talking to, finance directors and showing what could be done with automation and how that can help the operation, the eyes kind of open up a little
Probably
bit more.
A lot of excitement.
It's a little bit like magic. Now, of course, we have to show them the demo to show them that the product actually works and show that we have customer success and a history of being able to do this successfully. But people are like, you can really do this, and how much time would I save if I did this, and the such. And so because the process is so manual and also complex out here, there's been a really good reception to Tipalti so far in our conversations in terms of showing how our platform works. We did spend a lot of time in terms of, as part of that readiness plan I talked about earlier, we did localize the product quite significantly. We didn't just lift what we had in the US and drop it down here.
Sure.
And so I think that's also helped because we've built out capabilities like VAT and self-billing and of course other integrating with the local banking infrastructure out here, which has helped our solution better serve the needs of the market than we were able to do beforehand.
We speak to a lot of fintechs that are looking to expand into new regions, new continents. How did you guys decide, firstly, the UK? And do you have any advice for people, one, deciding on where they want to expand to, and then just that process in general?
Yeah. So, you'll probably hear this. I've said it before on the marketing side, but, it starts kind of with data. Honestly, we chopped a lot of data in terms of looking at the TAM. Our core target market is generally mid-market, high growth, high scaling, high velocity companies. And so there's many data sources out there furnished by the UK, by other governments around the world and other bodies that, you can kind of get a sense of which markets are the largest from our target market perspective. Also looking at more softer variables. Europe has the trust score. We looked at that. Which helps kind of understand where you can serve and where you can approach markets from. We looked at other counts, things like VC funding by country, entrepreneurial activity by country, high growth. Deloitte has some great metrics around, growth outlooks for the future of the country, because you don't want to have a big market, but it's a dying country and the economy will shrink over time. You want to go to a place that has a future. And so match with industries where we're strongest with. So we looked at all those characters. We also looked at where demand's been coming in. We've been doing this. We've been in business since 2010. So we have a history of seeing where demand's coming in. And we've known we should be a global company for a while for a few reasons. One of those data points that we know is about 20% of our clients are non-US, despite us being literally focused on the US market. So we were trying to get marketing and sales and all functions and organization to focus on the US market, because of course it's quite large. And but despite that, 20% of our clients are coming from outside of the US. And it's because our system is so strong on global capabilities, cross-border payments, tax ID collection, multi-subsidiary pieces, fraud identification, and such like that. And because of that global nature, and then looking at the data, you could just see that there's tons of demand who not only are coming in and want our system, but actually will buy the system at that point, despite the fact that all the operations and were based out of the US. And so that was a great indicator that we've got a great future in other markets. And when you cut within that data, UK was definitely the top market. And so it was pretty clear. And then Europe, mainland Europe, as a general region, taking UK out of it, is also quite an effective region from that perspective. So those were pretty clear data points that, particularly if we have a local staff who are focused on the market, and we also localize the product and we get FCA licensing and integrate with local banks, we should be quite effective out here, because we can already see in the data that, TAM-wise and fit-wise, it's a great market. It's a great growth market as well. So it fits from that kind of psychographic perspective. And then the demand's already there, and that demand's not only coming in, but people are purchasing the system. And of course, our system is now going to be much stronger now that we've localized the offering and the service side of it. So it was actually, I don't want to oversimplify, but it was a relatively easy decision from a strategic perspective. There's then of course how to do that, when to do it. Those are the tougher decisions that we had to make.
Sure. Rob, thank you so much for coming on to this episode. You shared such great advice, so thanks again.
Great. Well, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it. Anytime.
Where's the best place for listeners to reach you?
LinkedIn. You could just find me. My last name, I'm probably the only Israch on LinkedIn, so ISRACH. But feel free to connect with me.
Awesome. Thanks again.
All right. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Talking Success, Connecting the Global Fintech Community. Feel free to follow us on LinkedIn at Talent in the Cloud. And if you're interested in exec talent, expanding your team, or you yourself are looking for a new, exciting change in your career, check out our website, talentinthecloud.io.